This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. One of the things, because I've been moving and switching stuff around, I haven't had the time to comment on that I definitely want to comment on is this news. It's not really news anymore. It happened about a week ago. But the Cleveland Browns are going to be featured on Hard Knocks along with the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, there are a lot of reasons for people who have been a longtime viewer of my channel or a longtime viewer of some of the other channels that I put out there. You would know why this is especially something that's been very important and super exciting for me, and why I feel like, just following the stuff that I am a part of is going to be some of the best coverage of Hard Knocks that you can find. But also, I want to talk about just the pure football element. For those of you who may not be frequent viewers of mine, and maybe you clicked on a video, maybe this is your first time coming on here, but the reason I think this is significant, and it's in-season Hard Knocks, let me make that distinction right now. So it's in-season Hard Knocks, not the preseason Hard Knocks. But the reason it's significant that HBO and the NFL are featuring a division, and the first division they go to is the AFC North, is again a testament to the division. Because what is unique about the AFC North, if I remember the Hard Knock rules correctly, back when we really wanted the Browns to get it before they got it in HBO, the 1 year with Hugh Jackson, the Hard Knocks rules are if you did not make the playoffs the year prior or in the last 2 years, you are required to go on Hard Knocks. Or if you have a new head coach, you can be exempt from Hard Knocks. The Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Baltimore Ravens are all teams that are not forced to do Hard Knocks via whatever the owners have agreed with. They are all teams that can volunteer but aren't ever going to be required. The Cleveland Browns made the playoffs last year. The Cincinnati Bengals have made the playoffs within the last 2 years. The Pittsburgh Steelers have made the playoffs the last 2 years, and the Baltimore Ravens made the playoffs. So one, it is significant that none of these franchises were in a position to be forced to do Hard Knocks, which means they volunteered, which means on some level, and we hear this whenever people interview the coaches, whenever people interview the organization, this division gets it more than any other division. Pro wrestling, when guys do promos, right, you usually see the highlights, but the best wrestlers, the best drawing wrestlers, the wrestlers who made the most money for wrestling companies and themselves, those are the guys who can build a match without just flat out embarrassing their opponent. They can build a match while also pumping up their opponent, right? They don't bury their opponent. And that's something that the AFC North understands, and similar to the Big Ten and the SEC. Because when you see like John Cena is not a great example, but let's just use John Cena, right? Reason why John Cena makes a lot of money is because he can convince you that him fighting LA Knight, that's gonna be a fair fight, right? It wouldn't be fun if John Cena walked in there, you trash, I make more movies than you, I make more money than you, and I'm gonna beat you in SummerSlam in 2 minutes, and then he just walks off. It'd be a fun clip, but you wouldn't watch the fight. Now, if John Cena comes in there and he's talking about how he understands what LA Knight has done and what he's done as Eli Drake and how he's serious, and I got to take you seriously, but I'm John Cena, and they come at it from that angle, it's going to get you more excited to watch that match because you can believe that it might be a close match because they're taking each other both seriously. When you see coaches, to flip this back to football, in the AFC North talk about each other, it's never disrespect. It's always the utmost respect. Even when the Browns were pitiful, they would show the Browns the utmost respect, at least in the pregame presser. Post-game, you do whatever you want. But pregame, it's always respect. This is the toughest division in football. You don't ever assume that you're just going to walk in an AFC North game and beat it. They always big up the division. They say, hey, you got to take it seriously because this is the AFC North. This is the best division in football. And now we're seeing that energy that has been created because now you have continuity with all four teams, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers have had the same head coach with Mike Tomlin forever. The Baltimore Ravens have had the same head coach with John Harbaugh forever. The Cincinnati Bengals and Zach Taylor have been together over 5 years. The Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski have been together 5 years at this point. All four teams have an unprecedented level of cohesive continuity. So that makes this division the most intriguing and the most interesting division in all of football. Now, for those of you who have been watching my coverage for a while, they know of my different products. You know I do AFC North talk. The reason I think that is significant when it comes to this news is this is something we talked about in AFC North. Like, this is not just hype. This is the best division in football. And the reason it's the best division in football, you don't even have to look at the rosters to understand it. The rosters will prove that point. I've always made the point. The rosters will prove that point. But look at the front offices. If you want to see why this is the best division in football, it has been the best division in football since it's been created, and it will continue to be the best division in football. It's almost more assured now because if you look at those front offices, all four of them have great track records. Putting somebody in last place in the AFC North as far as front office goes, it's not really the L people think it is because fourth place in the AFC North for front office, probably still top 12 in the NFL, right? Cincinnati Bengals, you can say what you want about them, but they're a cheap team, but they find a way to reload talent relatively often, and they haven't been miserable despite being financially less secure than other NFL teams, is how I'll put it. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they have been a solid franchise for a very long time with a very good front office for a very long time. The same can be said for the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns are creating something in Cleveland that a lot of teams are following the template for with Andrew Berry. So both, and here's why I think this divisional look at Hard Knocks in season is going to be interesting, because you're going to get a look at how four relatively well-ran organizations operate throughout a season. You're going to find out what's normal for a good organization, right? There are things that you would assume no good organization goes through, right? That if this happens in your building, you're a bad organization. But that's kind of just what happens in every organization. You're going to find a lot of things. I think it's going to be one of the most interesting seasons of Hard Knocks, period, but definitely one of the most interesting in-season Hard Knocks. I'm definitely going to be locked in for this. I'm definitely going to review this during the season. I'm definitely going to have a lot of fun with it because this is something that has been coming together with the collective understanding of the importance of the brand of AFC North, right? Like, the collective importance of like understanding the history of the AFC North, because while the Ravens aren't a old franchise, their history is interesting because it's intertwined with Cleveland. And here's the last little nugget I'll drop on you guys for those who don't know. The reason the AFC North being featured like this is also cool for specifically you Browns fan is because the AFC North is a complete creation of the Cleveland Browns. Here's what I mean when I say it. The Cleveland Browns obviously are the Cleveland Browns. They got paused for a little bit when Art Modell got to move a team to Baltimore, didn't get the naming rights, didn't get the history, the city sued and kept those successfully. So the Cleveland Browns obviously are responsible for being the Cleveland Browns. By proxy, because the team moved to Baltimore, or Art Modell got a football team in Baltimore with the Cleveland Browns players on the 95 team, the Baltimore Ravens are intertwined with the Cleveland Browns. Now, some of you may know this, some of you may not. Paul Brown, the Brown family, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals, or the owners of the Cincinnati Bengals, come from the Cleveland Browns, right? That's where they got their history from. That's where they got their come from the Cleveland Browns. When Art Modell bought the Cleveland Browns, he wanted to control it and be the face of it. So he got rid of Paul Brown, and Paul Brown lobbied for many years to get a football team. And he finally got a football team in Cincinnati, and the Cincinnati Bengals, he basically tried as hard as he could early on to basically make them the Cleveland Browns, right? Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, CB, same logos. If you ever wondered why the Cincinnati Bengals have such similar colors to the Cleveland Browns, it's not a coincidence. If you look at early Cincinnati Bengals uniforms, they're identical to the Cleveland Browns, except for they swap black for brown. Well, they swap brown for black. So like that's the only real difference that they have there. It's basically a 1-for-1 remake of the Cleveland Browns, because that's what Paul Brown was trying to do. He was trying to recreate the Cleveland Browns down to the uniform that they wore. And that's how the Cincinnati Bengals were created. There's an argument on how deep it goes and how deeply connected the Cincinnati Bengals are to the Cleveland Browns. But the fact is that Paul Brown got a football team. He made it a 1-to-1 copy of the Cleveland Browns. That thing is connected to the Cleveland Browns. It's why people refer to Cincinnati as the Cleveland Browns' little brother, because they technically kind of are. Same thing with Baltimore, but when you beat us that much, I guess it don't stick. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, which some of y'all might be like, hey man, how are the Pittsburgh Steelers connected to the Cleveland Browns? Here's what I'll throw in here. The Pittsburgh Steelers were a dwindling nothing franchise until Chuck Noll arrived, right? Chuck Noll is the modern rebirth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like the Steelers that we know, the good franchise, the team that's had like 4 coaches in 100 years, it starts with Chuck Noll. Did you know Chuck Noll was a Cleveland Brown? Well, now you know that Chuck Noll was a Cleveland Brown, another team in the AFC North that owes its existence, as we know it, to the Cleveland Browns. So it's another cool reason why the AFC North being featured in this way is really cool for Browns fans. But that's it for y'all. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.